devil dropped the gavel on that little coastal town.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Trial Watchers podcast. This is a podcast about true crime fans for true crime fans. I'm your co-host, Mike Pachenik, and joining me is my lovely co-host, Melissa Gordon. Mel, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well. Great to see you. Just a few housekeeping items before we dive into part 2 of our fantastic episode with The Long Road to Justice. So if you are listening to this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our page. Also go to trialwatchers.com. There you can join our Trial Watchers Crew Patreon page for all of our great content. You can also buy our book, Trial Watchers. So go check it out today. This is part 2 of our podcast on the Long Road to Justice, and our guests are joining us again. Shana Hirsch is an English professor by day in the Low Country. She spent more than a year researching and co-writing this book, The Long Road to Justice, with our other guest, Amie Williams. She's a payroll specialist for a Low Country municipality, but she's also juror number 864 in the Alec Murdaugh double murder trial. Their book is available for pre-order at www.thelongroadtojustice.com. Going to bring in Shana and Amie once again. Thank you for making time for us.
Amie, I was in the courtroom the day that Alex testified. I was riveted when I first heard. I know there was a little bit of buzz, maybe on the news or something, the night before that he was considering taking a stand or something. Addie and I actually made a decision that we were going to stay another day because we didn't want to miss that once we heard it was going to happen. How did the jurors hear that he was going to take the stand?
I think that the clerk of court did tell us that he probably was going to take the stand, because she came in and told us that they were thinking about extending the trial a few more days. So I think that was probably about the time when she said, and he was thinking about taking the stand, so he probably was.
Let's see. I know how I felt when he got up to testify and sat down, and I remember making specific notes. One of which is that he sat down in that chair and he turned his chair straight to the jury box. And I thought, oh boy. Did he ever look at you when he was testifying?
Yes, I was right in that corner. So, when he turned his chair around, I was like, whoa, what, we're doing this? What's happening? I thought it was a little odd, but I was like, okay. So it was a lot. It was a lot.
I can only imagine being in the jury box. I know how I felt when I watched him do that, because we had been there and most of the witnesses were answering questions and talking to the different sides. But when he sat down, he made a point to, I can't imagine how that must have felt.
His eyes was mostly on, it started with the foreperson, and then he worked his way, around. But yeah, he made sure. Yeah, that was crazy.
Wow, Shana, you actually came up with a little wordplay in the book. Speaking of his testimony, instead of testify, you made up a new word or something. What was that in your book?
I cannot take credit for that word. I have to give credit to my friend Kathy over at the YouTube channel, Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo. If you need a good true crime laugh, go for Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo, named after a Dick Harpootlian comment. Like and subscribe to her channel. I think that Kathy first said it in relation to Emma Daybell's lying on the stand at her father's trial. She's like, oh yeah, and then Emma got up there and testified, and I was like, I gotta use that for Alex because it's so perfect. Because that is all that the man did. It's like, if he's talking, he's lying. And
if your lips are moving,
he's lying.
Well, I think the only thing he said that was true was the fact that he was at the scene. He admitted that he was there.
And maybe he spelled his name correctly. He might have spelled his name correctly. That might have been the other truth that was there. But yeah, it was that. Obviously, if you were there the day that he testified, Melissa, so was I. So that was the one and only day that I attended the trial. And my friend who was with me, we talked the entire 70 minutes back home about all of the lies. And we were just amazed at all of that and how he was trying to weave it all together with the timeline and then all of the inaccuracies, because we're like, but you didn't say that you said that you were driving around with Paul for hours, not an hour or something like that. There are just so many basic inconsistencies that were just dripping out of his mouth. The longest testimony ever.
Yeah, and Amie, you listen to all this testimony, you listen to the test-lying of Alex Murdaugh. You get to the jury room and you have to deliberate this man's fate now. What was that like in the jury room, having to deliberate with all of those eyes on you? What were you thinking and what were you feeling during that time?
I was thinking that I can't wait to hear what everyone else was thinking, but it was pretty much sealed for me. I felt like, yeah, he did it. And he definitely, with his testimony, he kind of wrapped a bow around it and made it,
I told my family,
made it clear that he did to me. But I did want to hear what everyone else had to say. And I was looking forward to that and going through whatever we needed to go through. But everybody was ready. We were a little tired and we were a little shocked. First of all, I was very shocked. I had no idea that we were going to end up in deliberations that day. When I got up, I didn't know that was going to happen. I was a little shocked when we were. So, but the Madam Foreperson did a great job. You know, she told us once the doors were locked and shut, locked rather, that if we were too tired and we didn't want to do this right then, we didn't have to. We could come back the next day and we could start fresh. Everybody was like, nope, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do it. So, you know, everybody was civil. Nobody made, as far as I could tell, made anybody feel that their opinion didn't matter or what they were thinking didn't matter or their question was a stupid question or a crazy question. I don't see where that was done. I think that we all had a very good discussion with all the questions that were asked. And there were a lot of questions and we looked through a lot of evidence. I mean, we looked through a lot of different things. I'm not going to name each piece, but we went through it. There was a lot of stuff, as you know, rather. It was a lot of stuff. And we went through what we thought were the key pieces. And I just think that Madam Foreperson did a really good job making everybody feel comfortable and making sure that everybody understood that this was a decision we were going to have to live with.
Did you start deliberations did you take a straw poll off the top to see where everybody's head was before you moved on?
Yes, we took a poll first. We wrote yes or no on a piece of paper, and and nobody knew who voted what, and just passed it to the Madam Foreperson, and she counted it out, and it was 9 guilty, 2 not guilty, 1 not sure.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't know who the 2 holdouts were, or the third person who wasn't sure. So at that point, you have to really come to terms and go through everything and eventually have a consensus there. Shana, how do you capture that kind of heavy moment on the pages of your book, The Long Road to Justice?
So I listened to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of articles about it. So I took a lot of the things that they were, just because I obviously wasn't in the room at the time or in the courtroom when the verdict was being delivered, but just they kept talking over and over again about how it was so quiet in there. You could have literally heard a pin drop. And I just kind of, just like with Amie at Moselle, I kind of just put myself into that space and was like, correct me if I'm wrong, Amie, but like, this is just kind of like what it would have felt like what I imagined it felt like to her, because I mean, no good was going to come out of that. There were no winners at the end of the day. You know,
Right.
Buster was losing everything, and so I knew, just knowing Amie the way I do, I know that that had to weigh heavy on her heart too. So that was kind of helped me to kind of propel the words along.
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Amie, I had a great respect and adored Judge Newman. Just, I mean, when I watched him command that courtroom in that trial, I was so impressed with him.
Yes.
What stood out to you, if anything, about Judge Newman?
Judge Newman, you could tell, was full of wisdom, and he had the authority. I mean, he was definitely his presence was commanding, I guess you could say. He and calming, and he was very caring and very attentive to us. He wanted to make sure that we were fine, that we were not being harassed, that we were not being influenced or asked to vote a certain way. You know, he wanted to make sure that we were comfortable, and he cared about our safety and everything. And I just felt like he was a great judge, and he is a great man, and he did a great job.
Shana, throughout the book, you did a lot of researching by taking the temperature of people online in different groups or whatnot, and what they were commenting about. Did you find anyone with a bad word to say about Judge Newman?
No, and that I was so pleased. I mean, I think that if anybody had anything bad to say about Judge Newman, it might be like saying something bad about Santa Claus or something, because like, what can you say bad about Judge Newman? And I think that they probably, I mean, even though the Murdaugh trolls don't really have a lot of self-awareness, I think even they knew that might just be a bridge too far for them, because and of course it would be all false, because what can you say about him that would be bad? He handled everything so diplomatically. He even like, he could have imposed sanctions on certain lawyers at different times for different things. Like, I don't know, pointing a gun at the prosecution.
Oh, that was awful.
Yeah. And then, you know, retweeting that wasn't really a retweet and stuff like that. He was more than kind and
very good. Yeah.
So, Amie, when you get to the verdict, you felt like your anonymity had been compromised because of a videographer doing something they weren't supposed to do. What happened there? And then, you know, what were your concerns about potentially being outed?
Well, we were going back on break. I can't remember if it was lunch break or a regular break. And one of the jurors were like, somebody took a picture. And we were like, what? And one of the officers was like, who was it? And when she told her who she was, he didn't let anybody leave I don't know if you were in the courtroom that day, Melissa, but he did not let anybody leave that courtroom until he found that person. And here comes our hero, Judge Newman. And he brings her into his office, and he looks at her. I think she had a tablet or whatever she was doing, and her boss was in there with her, and they were just explain. I can't even remember what agency she worked with, but he took care of everything. They made sure that nothing went out on the website. They deleted any and everything that might have been on there, and he took care of it just like that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Having covered dozens of trials as a TV reporter, I know that is a cardinal sin to put juries on TV. And now with streaming of trials, it's even more important. And I've been in courtrooms where the photographer almost got the shot that he wasn't supposed to get, and I've seen judges admonish the photographers before. So yeah, that is a no-no for sure. Yes. But after the verdict was rendered, you decided to come out of the shadows, and you did go on the Today Show and Dateline. What was that like, and why did you decide to do that?
Well, We wanted to show a united front, I guess. Everyone didn't want to interview, of course. Some people just didn't want anything else to do with it, and you can understand that. And so we decided, the three of us, that we would go and we would represent, try to represent us and let everyone know that it was hard. It was a lot of information, a lot of testimony and everything to go through. But, we prayed about it, and we believe we kept our oath, and we delivered our verdict according to the instructions that was given unto us. And it was great seeing Craig Melvin and Hoda and Savannah. It was very nice. It was busy. It was busy because we did 2 live shows and then a 45-minute interview with Dateline. So it was a lot. We were pushing it.
Wow. And Shana, how did you try to tell Amie's story after the media appearances? Was life really normal for her?
So we talked a lot about
return to being normal.
We talked a lot about her New York trip and about those interviews, and then eventually how the text messages and the requests from the media died down, and then around September 5th of 2023, we find ourselves in that unique spot where the jury is right back in the forefront. And I walked that walk with her, and I had the real-time rundown of my phone's blowing up with all these people who want to talk to me, and I'm not going to talk because, all of that stuff. So
yeah.
And then we had the evidentiary hearing interviews.
Oh, yeah. I remember in reading the book, you mentioned the Zoom call we had on Labor Day on the 4th, and about the book, but had learned of the Harpootlian and Griffin press conference. Do you remember what you were feeling about what might occur on the 5th? Looking back at that day we did that Zoom call.
I was I was at work, and everything just started blowing up. Shana was texting me, this one was texting me, that one was texting me, and I'm like, what is happening? And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. Do you know what it's like? Do you remember what it's like when you're in a dream and you're falling, and you finally hit the bottom, and you that's what it felt like. That's exactly what it felt like. I was so confused, and I didn't understand what was happening at all.
What about you, Shana? Do you remember what you were feeling or anticipating about what might occur on the 5th?
Before, when we just kind of knew that there was going to be a press conference, and we didn't really know what it was about, I just remember thinking, did they find some archaic loophole or something that they're going to try to pull, or are they going to dare bring up their animosity about the financial crimes? What is this? And then the next morning I'm getting messages about it's about the jury, and then I was incredibly floored.
Yeah, Amie. Amie, I remember feeling completely blindsided at that press conference, and just having our world rocked. I mean, when the book that my husband worked on with Becky Hill was at the center of all these allegations, we started to question why we wrote the book with her. And you said in your book, you wished you hadn't been a juror. Why?
Well, because I felt like I was being persecuted, and I hadn't done anything wrong. I mean, I did not ask. None of us asked to be on the jury. You don't get a say in whether you're on the jury or not. This is something that, your civic duty. So we did what we were asked to do. We kept our oath. I know we did. I know I did. And we followed instructions, and we came to a verdict based on evidence and witness testimony. I mean, the evidence was clear, very clear. And Alex testifying made it even more clearer. So I couldn't understand what was happening.
Shana, you put a lot of effort, almost point, counterpoint. There were a series of charts on what Dick and Jim said and what you and Amie felt was the truth. What were some of those points that you questioned in the book?
One of the things that just really stood out to me, because I mean, Amie and I had talked so much about the process and everything, like before this whole September thing, the press conference, you know, we talked so much about the trial. It's just like the preposterous nature of the allegations. Like, there was no book deal. Becky wasn't getting a book deal. Why did, you know, but they kept saying it even after being corrected. And then most of the jurors are telling us, you talked to 4. 4 is not more than what about the other 8? And then what about the other ones who were there longer than they weren't there? You know, so they were just, and then just taking things completely out of context and turning them into something sinister was really bothersome to me. Like the group chat, there's nothing sinister about that. I got to know a juror from the Lori Vallow Daybell thing, and they talked about having a group chat, and Chad Daybell's, they were talking about their group chat. How many times do you do that when you're in a situation with somebody that you get to know? You're like, oh, let's form a group chat and stay in touch.
Yeah.
And there's nothing sinister about that. There's nothing that's bad. But just for the things that I knew that were just complete and utter lies being spun, that was very frustrating.
Yeah. And Amie, you write in the book that you felt scared and intimidated by what the attorneys were saying, so much so that you went out and got your own lawyer.
Well, I mean, so it's just like the falling thing. The example I just gave. He, you know, when they got on, was it Good Morning America or whatever it was? And he said that the jurors need to lawyer up, and I was like, what? You got to be kidding me. So I was thinking, there's no telling what they're trying to do and what lengths they will go to. I mean, I know I hadn't done anything wrong, but just to protect, you know, to be safe, I said, I'm going to try and find a lawyer. But the lawyer found me. So my white knight found me. So it was a great thing.
Well, Amie, by the end of the year, Judge Newman retired. Justice Toll took over the case. You were called to testify at an evidentiary hearing with other jurors, along with Becky Hill, over the alleged jury tampering. Can you tell us what that was like for you?
It was, I guess, a way to show or to verbalize that, you know, I was not influenced. I was not given a magic potion or a wand, you know, was, you know, circled over me or anything. That I came to this decision by the evidence and by witness testimony. And this was going to be my way of saying, this is what happened and what it's not true. Not for me.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I know in the book you addressed Juror Z, who we now know as Mandy from her TV appearances and interviews. She said she felt pressured by Becky Hill and her fellow jurors. And you spoke to that latter part. How do you feel about that?
I can't understand how she felt pressured. And I'm just saying that I don't understand, because as I stated earlier, and as I stated in the book, Madam Foreperson made it very clear. If you were not comfortable with your verdict, we will not go out and deliver this verdict. She wouldn't even sign the papers until she was the one who had to fill out the papers. She was not going to fill it out. She was not going to sign it until everyone was comfortable with their decision. She said, this is a decision you have to live with. You need to make sure that you have examined everything. If you have any questions. So I really couldn't understand how she felt pressured by us. And, you know, Madam Foreperson made it clear that you may be asked under oath. You may be polled. So you need to make sure that we don't have to go out there today. I mean, I don't know. I just can't understand how she felt pressured.
Shana, any thoughts about that all-day experience with Neil and I in Columbia on that
There's
hearing?
nobody else I would have rather been with than you and Amy's mom and Neil, because that was a serious roller coaster of a day.
Yeah.
All of the things were there. There was the uncertainty of not knowing. Then there was the shock of Jersey's testimony, and then looking back at the media and all of them just kind of getting really pale after that. And
Yes.
and it was just, and then the disruptor that came in afterward, that guy.
Yes, it was scary, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really scary because he was very angry. And yeah,
and I remember feeling just the whole thing in general, the jurors who gave so much time and came to that verdict, even Becky having to get up there and testify, because I really didn't believe that she could have pressured jurors into a verdict, that whole narrative. And I knew it was going to be hard for her, even though there wasn't any communication with us at that point. I just felt bad for everybody involved that were having to go through that.
Yeah, there was, I mean, it was very painful to watch. And then some of the hijinks were just ridiculous. I remember that Drew Tripp said about the sentencing for the financial crimes. He said something like, well, if Dick Harpootlian accuses Eric Bland of stealing the Declaration of Independence, that won't be the craziest thing that happens. And that's exactly how I felt about the evidentiary hearing, because especially after our lunch break, when he was bringing in people that were not supposed to testify, and we just didn't know what was going to happen. And Justice Toll was acquiescing. It was, I just remember, like, when I got home that Wednesday from the evidentiary hearing, like, I think I slept for about solid for about 2 days. Like, it was exhausting.
It was it was chaotic. It was exhausting. It reminded me of the trial.
Yeah. But I'm glad that Dick and Jim said that they're going to find the real killers afterward. We're still waiting.
So I want to ask both of you. I'm going to put you both on the spot here if you're comfortable with this. We have what Juror Z is claiming. We have this egg lady claim now. Do you either of you really think that the South Carolina Supreme Court is going to agree to a new trial, A? And B, if so, will another jury just convict Alex Murdaugh of double murder for a second time? I'll start with you, Amie.
I don't know. I really can't speak to it. There's just so much craziness in this whole thing. I think that the justice system is just being made a mockery of right now by the Dick and Jim show and the Murdaugh, Alex Murdaugh. And I am praying that justice will prevail.
And in your mind, justice is he's convicted. He spends the rest of his natural life in prison.
Yes, that it stands. That's it.
Shana?
I have to believe that justice will prevail, that the Supreme Court is just going to see all of the holes in their argument, and especially in the wake of everything the interviews that have recently come out. There's a lot that I think that can be gleaned from those about the legitimacy of those claims, maybe.
Well, Shana Hirsch, Amie Williams, thank you so much for joining us on the Trial Watchers podcast. They've got a new book. It's on pre-order now. You can get it by going to www.trialwatchers.com. www.thelongroadtojustice.com. And the book is called The Long Road to Justice, Unraveling Alex Murdaugh's Tangled Web. And I should say some of the proceeds will be going to a very worthy cause, Sanctuary House, which is for victims of domestic violence. Amie, I'm going to let you just tell our listeners a little bit about that project.
Yes, Sanctuary House will be a shelter for domestic violence victims and their children. I am a survivor, and so I had been given this vision by the Lord to open this house and to be for women what I needed and pretty much what I had through my family. And a lot of people don't have, the family there for them, but I want to be able to give them a sanctuary. I want to be able to give them what they need to be able to survive on their own and take care of themselves and their children again. So, and we're also offering a longer term. The current shelter only houses for 60 days. We are looking for 6 months to a year if necessary, but we will give them what they need to be able to get out and survive and live their lives fully again.
Oh, what a wonderful cause. Thank you for your service. Thank you for telling your story, for meeting Shana, and for writing this book, The Long Road to Justice, Unraveling Alex Murdaugh's Tangled Web. If you want to get your copy on pre-order, go to thelongroadtojustice.com and you can get it there. And while you're online, go to trialwatchers.com and get a copy of our book and sign up for the Trial Watchers crew to get more great content just like this. We've got a docuseries that just came out that really takes a deep dive into all the craziness surrounding the Becky Hill saga and the Murdaugh case. So if you haven't seen it, you'll get a chance to by going there. And we look forward to catching you on the next episode. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Devil dropped the gavel on that little coastal town.